I'm so thankful to get this opportunity to come up here and share a little bit about my story. And when Blair asked me, I was like, I know what I'm talking about already. So I want to start with just how God's been working in my life. And July 30th, 2016, that's when my life changed forever. I was giving my testimony at this youth event, and I was sharing, and I remember at the end, I was like, and I'm going to Southern Nazarene University for youth ministry. And I immediately looked at it, I was like, whoa, I didn't say that. That was definitely from the Lord. And so I got off stage and I called my youth pastor and I was like, I think the Lord is calling me in the ministry. And he's like, I always knew it. I always knew you were going to be a pastor. I'm like, ah. But it's kind of funny because ever since that day, I've really been chasing after that call with my whole heart. And so 4 years later, I'm the college pastor at Lake Overholser Church of the Nazarene, and it's been awesome. So if you're not busy on Sunday nights at 7:30, y'all should come hang out. It's pretty fun. So the part of my story I'm going to tell you today is about how God answers prayers, how our God is a healer, a God of restoration. This year on August 2nd, I was super sick. Wasn't myself. I was moving into Chapman for Lead Retreat, and everybody that saw me that day would be like, dude, I knew something was wrong with you. And I remember I texted Misty, and I was like, Misty, I think I'm gonna have to go to the ER. I'm not feeling good. And so she took me. I'm thinking it's COVID stuff. I'm like, man, I'm gonna be out for 2 weeks. That's not fun. But I went in. They're doing a bunch of tests. COVID wasn't a thing. It came back negative, and they're like, yeah, we don't really know what's going on with you. And I'm like, well, y'all are the doctors, so y'all need to figure it out. And so that was Sunday. And so that Monday, my mom came up. And from then on, that's like a blur. I don't really remember much. And so the next thing that I remember is waking up 14 days later. I remember waking up, and my nurses came in the room, and they were like, oh my gosh, you're awake, you're a miracle and all this. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? I've only been asleep for a day. And they're like, no, Jordan, it's August 12th. And the first thing that ran through my head, which is kind of funny, was I missed NSI. Misty was going to kill me. So I was like, I got to get back. And so I was like, I need to talk to my mom and stuff. And I called my mom, and my mom was crying on the phone. She was like, I'll be up there and I'll tell you everything that's happened. And so when my mom came up, she was telling me that when I was in the hospital that Tuesday, I started to not be able to breathe. I was losing oxygen, and so they were going to have to put me on a ventilator. And so I was put on a ventilator on that Wednesday, and after that, they did a surgery where they found a bunch of infection in my stomach. And when they found all of that, it was all in my colon, so they had to cut half of my colon out. Luckily enough, I didn't have any tumors or cancer or anything, so that was good. But after that, all my organs started to fail. My lungs, my heart, on my kidneys, I was put on dialysis, and I was just sleeping then. And it's kind of funny because no one thought I would make it. Everybody was basically saying, we're just going to make them comfortable, the doctors. And it's kind of funny because our God is greater than that, and I'm here, standing here today telling you this. And I remember waking up, and my mom told me all this stuff, and I was just like, wow. And all I could do was just thank God for, saving me and healing me. And my mom didn't give me my phone for a little bit because she was like, oh, are you going to be overwhelmed? And I got on Facebook, and I saw all the posts and reposts and the donations and just the love that I was shown. And so during this time, I've kind of asked God, why? Why did this have to happen to me? We always have those questions. And so it's kind of funny because God's I don't have to answer to you, But kind of what I got out of this was, I'm a people lover. I love people so much. And so sometimes I find that super hard to find in return. People love me, But during this time that I was in the hospital, I really, really was shown so much love from people from SNU, people back home, people I didn't even know. Like, I remember I met one of our interns at my church, and he was like, dude, that was you in the hospital? Like, I was up there praying for you, and like came to like the worship night of that, and I was like, dude, that's awesome. And so it was just so crazy how much prayer that was going on and how God really worked in my life. And so over the next few days I was in the hospital, I was just healing, and my heart was at 17%. And they came in, they did something, I don't know what they did, but they looked at it and my heart was at 76%. They took me off dialysis. Oh, sorry, that's my insulin pump because I'm a diabetic. But anyway, I was taken off dialysis and my lungs were doing so much better. And I can tell you that that was nothing but God, and without him, I wouldn't be here. And so I'm thankful for that season of life. I wasn't even supposed to come back to SNU this semester, but I'm here and I've been pushing through. All my professors have been great. My friends, all of you guys, y'all have been awesome. And it's just, I'm a walking miracle, you know? And so I love that. And thank you guys for giving me this opportunity to share with you. And so this next song we're going to sing is called Waymaker. I listened to it a lot while I was in the hospital. So if y'all want to stand and worship with us.
For a lot of us, 2020 has been a wild year. But for me, 2020 has nothing on 2019. But before that, going back a little bit, growing up, I can honestly say that I was pretty privileged. I come from a stable home with two parents who love each other, my sister and I. Both parents served as pastors at our church growing up. My mom was the worship pastor, my dad was the children's pastor. So having faith in God was always pretty easy for me. It was just something that my family did. But of course, as I grew up, I faced my own challenges with insecurities, mental health, and other big things that helped me learn how to really make my faith my own and not my parents'. So when I came to SNU, I was so excited about what was in store for me. I was going to step out of my comfort zone. I was going to be in chapel band and the musical, and I tried out for Remedy and made it, and I was so excited. And all the while, my parents were my biggest cheerleaders. They were so excited that I was really coming out of my shell. And my dad, he was my biggest cheerleader, because he and I had a really special bond. A lot of who I am today is because of him, my personality, my love for rodeos and the country life and everything. My family kind of makes fun of me saying that I am my dad, and he was my best friend. So freshman year came to a close, and I came home from school after my last final, and it was my first night at home. I was in my sister's bedroom, just spending time with her, when my mom came bursting in the door yelling, "Your dad needs help." And it was like 2 a.m, so I was thinking, what could my dad possibly need help with? So when I went in their bedroom, I saw my dad lying there, unconscious, not breathing, and I helped my mom, flipped him over onto his back, while the 911 operator gave her instructions on how to do CPR. I watched my mom struggle to get his heart beating before my sister pulled me out of the room to watch for the ambulance to arrive. After what felt like an eternity, they were able to get his heart beating just enough to where they could transport him to the hospital. The next 2 days were agonizing. We celebrated Mother's Day in the hospital, just waiting to find out what happened to my dad and what's going to happen to him. Well, he had gone into cardiac arrest and was without oxygen for so long that it had affected his brain. So even if he was to wake up, he wouldn't be the same. The doctors did everything they could, but then we finally had to make the impossible decision to release my dad into the Lord's hands. Family and friends gathered around his hospital bed until he finally slipped away into his eternal home. And as you can imagine, the next few days and weeks were the longest of my life. But I'm so thankful that 2 weeks later, I had the opportunity to travel with Remedy to the different summer camps around the region. That was such a blessing because during my time there, I was surrounded by people who loved me and cared for me, surrounded by an atmosphere of worship and fellowship, and it was exactly what I needed in those dark days. Leading worship for kids and teens at camp sometimes felt like just a slight glimmer of hope in the darkest days of my life. It was an absolute blessing to hear young voices singing to the Lord when it just felt like I couldn't. It was the second night of South Texas camp, some of you were probably at, that I got a text from my mom saying that my grandma on my dad's side, who I was also incredibly close to, had fallen and was unconscious. She was in the hospital and they weren't sure if she was going to make it. This was right about a month after my dad had passed. So when I called my mom after the service that night and found out my grandma had died, I felt a rush of anger and defeat that I've never felt before. The rest of that summer and a big part of my sophomore year was a battle, and there were moments where I was feeling like I was just cursed. I truly believed that nothing good could ever happen to me. I started to live life expecting the worst to happen simply because my name is Morgan Marquis and bad things happened to me. I felt broken. I began to then live life like I was broken. I felt like without my dad, I had lost my purpose. My dad was my greatest coach, and without him, what's the point? But there's one thing that happened at one of the camps that summer that I held on to in the midst of all this hopelessness I was feeling. I remember during my quiet time one morning at camp, feeling like the distance between myself and the Lord was greater than it has ever been. But I inhaled the cool morning air. I felt the rush of peace. And I heard the Lord remind me that I'm still breathing. I'm still alive. And that means He isn't done with me. My father fought the good fight, and the Lord is very pleased with him. But my fight isn't over. And every breath I take is a reminder that God still has a purpose for me on this earth. I might feel like my dad's story is over, but I get to continue his story through my life, just as he lived a life that continued the story and message of Christ. That was what I've held on to since May 13th, 2019, when he finally died. I'm not going to lie and say that over a year later, I've completely adjusted to my life without my father and grandmother, because honestly, there are days where the reality hits me all over again. I still cry regularly, and I wish I could just call my dad just about every day. But I love to think back on that morning at Camp Bond where I saw Jesus Christ sitting beside me, feeding the oxygen into my lungs almost in the same way that a mother would feed a child, and telling me He's not done with me. My life doesn't end with the passing of my dad. My story isn't over, and because of that hope, I am made strong. Thank you.
Hey guys, my name's Emily Monaghan. So I'm so glad I don't have to wear my mask because people don't understand me with my mask, so let alone with a mask, you just won't understand me. So I'm actually from Australia. If you can tell by the accent, I don't do it for clout, but it's just a casual 16-hour flight away, which is a bit far. But growing up in Australia, I wasn't really exposed much to religion. We would celebrate Christmas and Easter, but it was more or less for like chocolate or presents, so I didn't really think much about it. With my friends from school and like just in general back home, none of them were really religious, so I wasn't really exposed to it, and I didn't really give much thought about Christianity at all. But the go-to question from people from America is like, why Bethany, Oklahoma? So I had another school I was looking at in Hawaii, but I chose Bethany. Nothing against Oklahoma, but it's just a lot different to Hawaii. But at the time, I didn't know why I wanted so bad to come to SNU. I just felt like there was a bit of a really good pull to come to school here, and I was really oblivious to why. I just felt like it was the best fit for me, and so yeah, that's why I committed here. But committing to a Christian college, I also didn't think much about it. It wasn't really necessary to go to a Christian college because obviously I wasn't, but I thought I could really shrug off the Christian aspect. I thought I could go to chapel here and there and like not really think much about it. But I would see my roommate, Cassandra Awatt, who was so invested in her faith. It was like truly admiring. Like I would see her pray and then her prayers get answered, and I would count it down to a coincidence, and I would just be like, oh, like, wow, that just happened, that's cool. But I would just say, oh, that's a coincidence, and I would really shrug it off. And if you know Cassandra, she's very, very into her faith, and like, I love it. But she calls herself like Preacher C. And so I would ask her like questions about her faith, and she would obviously was so full, like she would tell me about it, and my curiosity was really beginning to like blossom, and I was really curious about it. It wasn't until I was on FaceTime with my friends back home that they were kind of discrediting and like disputing about Christianity, and it really struck a chord with me, and I found myself like defending it and like sticking up for it, and I was like really upset about it. So I was like, why am I so defensive about it? Like, why do I even care? Like, I'm not religious, so like, why is this even affecting me? But eventually I came to the realization that maybe I shouldn't just shut myself off from this path that I haven't even experienced, or like, why am I robbing myself from that? Decided I would act upon this curiosity, and that was accumulating inside of me because I didn't want to be like hurting myself in the long run by not experiencing this, because what's the worst case scenario of trying? So I'm an all-in, all-out type of girl. So I began to start Bible study with my coach, Coach May, and his wife, Miss Angie. I began to go to church with my roommate every Saturday, and I found that going to church, there was a few things that was really resonating with me. I found peace, and I was like peace and calm, and I really felt like I belonged, because obviously not being being exposed to religion, I never really felt like I belonged somewhere. Like, I just felt this feeling was like so rare to me, and it was awesome that it was like finally happening. So over the next few weeks, my church was beginning to talk more and more about baptism. I thought about it, but I didn't really think it was necessarily important for me at this time and like place, because I didn't think it was just necessary. But I prayed and I asked for a sign, and it wasn't until I was randomly walking past my coach's office that he like pulled me in, and he asked me about like what would I baptize, like what are my thoughts on it, and I was like, okay, here's my sign. And a week or two later, I got baptized, and yeah. Thanks. My team, like, they're here today again, supporting me, and they were there too for supporting me. So now I'm the daughter of the King, and I just feel like his light is shining on me. And I'm not perfect, like, I don't have it all together, and I'm sure, like, not many of us are perfect here. Unless you think you're perfect, like, go ahead, like, self-love, I'm all for it. But I have a God that has it all together and that knows it all and is helping me out with my life, and that's all I need. So, thank you.